Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing the monthly recap for July, everything that I watched in the month of July. I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't a lot. And I think I've been saying that for months at this point. It's just, first, when I found out I was pregnant, I went through a phase where nothing sounded good. None of my hobbies were interesting to me at all. So I stopped watching a lot of horror movies for that reason. And then now Big Brother is happening, and I treat the feeds as if it's my full-time job. I'm not even kidding. My screen time is 8 hours a day because I'm watching the feeds. I'm either watching the feeds or I'm scrolling through BB Twitter sometimes at the same time. So it really is like a full-time job for me. And if you watch Big Brother, you know that the first month of the game is usually the best on the feeds. So that's why I haven't really been watching much, because my whole day is comprised of the feeds. I'm sorry if you have no idea what I'm talking about or you don't care about Big Brother or reality TV at all. It's just one of my favorite shows of all time, and so I dedicate a lot of time to the feeds. Anyway, we still have some really exciting things to talk about for this month. I watched 3 brand new movies that just came out, I think in July, or at least, within the past few months to talk about. So I think you'll be excited to hear my thoughts on those. But yeah, let's just get into everything that I watched in the month of July. Spoiler alert, I liked everything that I watched. And I feel like that's so rare. Usually I watch at least one thing that I'm like, it was fine. I pretty much enjoyed everything that I watched in the month of July. So it was a good month despite not watching a ton of horror. So the first 2 movies I watched in July were Afflicted and Evidence. These are 2 that I covered in my found footage movie recommendations video I just posted. I will link that video up here if you want to know more thoughts on these. Then randomly we watched Flight. This was a Ryan pick. He just felt like watching it. Right now we're watching Forrest Gump, so you'll see that probably in the next month. I've never seen Forrest Gump. I know. Okay, so the first movie that I really want to delve into is Incantation, and this one is brand new to Netflix, and as soon as it came out, everyone was recommending this to me. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, my partner was scrolling Netflix and saw this movie on Netflix and was like, oh my god, babe, you have to watch this. It's so you. And I was like, yeah, I did watch it a couple weeks ago, actually. So 6 years ago, Lee Ronan was cursed after breaking a religious taboo. Now she must protect her daughter from the consequences of her actions. So this is a Taiwanese found footage movie, and I actually really enjoyed the found footage elements in this. It's somewhat traditional at times, somewhat kind of plays into the trope of why are they recording this at all, only sometimes. And I really liked the different ways that they utilized found footage throughout this movie. And honestly, I was just really excited to see it. I was almost surprised by this. I had no anticipation of this movie. I had never heard it was coming out. It was just out on one day, and I watched it the day it came out, and I was blown away, honestly, by the fact that we got a brand new found footage movie. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a really decent horror found footage. I also really enjoyed the pacing of this. I feel like the pacing of this movie is fantastic because not only does the horror start from the very beginning, there is no build up like in other found footage movies, like Gonjiam probably is the best example of a super long 30-minute build up that really doesn't matter that much when it comes to the movie as a whole. This movie, Incantation, did not have that. It was started off strong from the beginning, and then the pacing continues throughout by switching timelines. So we switch from 6 years ago when Lee, broke the religious taboo, and we see all that go down, and then it switches back to the present day with her and her daughter. And I think it just makes it so effective in watching. If you struggle with getting through movies these days, I don't know if anyone else is like that in this era of short form content. I'm struggling a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I need a couple sessions to get through some movies depending how slow they are. One of the movies, the last one we talk about, is just like that, and we'll get into that. But this one is a great balance of slower drama moments with the horror elements, and honestly I really loved the drama in this. I feel like it wasn't slow like other found footage movies where the slower parts, the dramatic parts, aren't as interesting as the horror, but I found them to be just as interesting as the horror parts of this movie. I think it's a beautiful story showing the relationship between this mother and daughter, and they really delve into that and building the characters in this. And I really love that they spent time on that, even though normally in this kind of movie it wouldn't fit necessarily because it's like a true horror movie, if that makes any sense. Normally I wouldn't like the drama aspects in found footage, and usually I don't. It's very rare that I enjoy kind of the drama and the story, because sometimes it can feel out of place in a found footage movie, but this one deals with it so well. I think on top of the pacing and like mixing up the different settings and utilizing different forms of found footage, I think just makes it work that much more. As far as the horror goes, I found it to be very effective, up my alley, loved the visuals. I really like, you know, the brief moments we get to see of it. However, because I'm greedy, I always want more. I want to see more. I want to experience more terror. I do find it genuinely scary. There are moments that are like so jarring, but some of them I feel like didn't stay on the screen long enough for me to like truly get the visuals of it and the horror of it. This movie is actually inspired by an incident that happened in 2005 where a family believed that they were possessed by evil entities of Chinese folklore, and their eldest daughter actually died and the rest of the family was imprisoned for it. So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, lastly, huge trigger warning for trypophobia. That what caught me so off guard, and it's really rare that I have to look away when it comes to trypophobia. I don't think I have it that severely. I don't get like faint or nauseous or anything. This one, I did. It was so disturbing. So disturbing. So if you have any kind of trypophobia, just letting you know. Like I said, the horror, effective, very good visuals when it comes to horror. Then I watched Willow Creek. I talked about this again in my found footage video. All right, next movie we're gonna cover is American Carnage. This is one that was also just released in July, and this is actually a kind of dark comedy. After a governor issues an executive order to arrest the children of undocumented immigrants, the newly detained youth are offered an opportunity to have their charges dropped by volunteering to provide care to the elderly. This was a very fun movie. I feel like it's kind of standard, almost a standard type movie, but I still had fun nonetheless with it. And it definitely has some flaws going on. I wasn't a fan of some things utilized in this. I'll go into specifics in a second. Not really spoilers, by the way. But it wasn't really a horror movie at the end of the day. Not in the sense that I liked it to be. I think that they tried to make certain elements a little bit more scary than they actually are to kind of fit the dark comedy or like the horror genre a little bit more, and it almost felt a little forced in there. But I did have a great time watching it, and it definitely kept me excited all the way through. Like I was very interested throughout the entire movie. So my biggest issue with American Carnage though is the utilization of elderly people that are naked, who have dementia, equals horror. I'm just kind of over that trope. I actually tweeted that when I was watching this movie and people thought I was talking about X. X is kind of the opposite of that, because I think what Ty West did with that movie is more commentary on how society views sexuality as we age and how it's usually demonized. So I think that was his commentary on that. So it wasn't intentionally like, look how creepy old naked people are. You know, I think he was going in the opposite direction of that. So no one knew I was talking about American Carnage, but they do use this trope in the movie. And right away, I knew kind of what was going on in this movie. So I did find it a little bit predictable. There's like a twist within a twist. So there's like multiple layers to it. And I only guessed one of them, or like the first layer of it. And I had no idea about the rest of the movie. I was still blindsided by the end. I did find the twists and the actual story of this very disturbing, which was very interesting because it was juxtaposed with like the lighthearted nature of the comedy elements in this, which was just a weird like combination. But I did enjoy the lighter aspects of this movie and the comedy, and of course Jenna Ortega's in it, who I love. I think the cast was phenomenal in this. I really enjoyed it. So overall, I would recommend this. I think I'll give it like 3 out of 5. It's pretty solid. I did have issues with it, but if you're just wanting a fun type of dark comedy, I think it's really good. Okay, the next two also found footage. I was watching a ton of new found footage, not even in anticipation of making that video. I was just in the mood to watch all this new found footage. So yeah, I watched The Borderlands / Final Prayer and Butterfly Kisses. So again, Want more thoughts on those? Go check out my last video. And then of course I watched Nope, which I really did enjoy. I will leave my review linked up here as well if you want to know my full in-depth thoughts if you have not seen it yet. Next up we have a movie called She Will. This is another one that was just released, I believe, in the month of July, although it also says online 2021, so I'm not sure when this was released, at least in the US. An aging film star retreats to the Scottish countryside with her nurse to recover from surgery, while there mysterious forces of revenge emerge from the land where witches were burned. So this is more of a psychological horror, and although I don't want to compare the movies too closely, because they do have something in common, this is horror in the sense that Gretel and Hansel is a horror movie, if that makes sense. There's nothing truly scary or horrifying. It's just very subtle psychological elements. Speaking of Gretel and Hansel, of course, the lead in She Will is also the witch in Gretel and Hansel. She's becoming one of my favorites, honestly, anytime she's in anything. She's phenomenal. I love her acting so much, and she killed it in this. So overall, I really loved She Will. I think it was such a gorgeous movie. I loved the story and the concept of revenge in it. That being said, slight trigger warnings for some things. It's mostly implied things, nothing too gratuitous by any means, but there are some implications in there. So just, you know, look up some trigger warnings. I'm not sure if they delved enough into everything that was going on. I feel like there was like one too many storylines going on with like the other people at the retreat, maybe was just a little bit too much. I wish they had kept it a little bit more simple like they did with Gretel and Hansel. Very minimal characters, minimal scenarios going on, but almost similar to Gretel and Hansel. Like I said, I didn't want to compare, but here we are. Only because they are very different in themes, but I still think if you liked Gretel and Hansel, there's that witchiness in there. There's witchiness in She Will. There is beautiful cinematography. Gretel and Hansel is prettier, but this one, gorgeous. And I thought the story was really beautiful, and you find yourself like rooting for certain people, and I just really had a good time watching it. I was so surprised. I went in with nothing. I didn't know who was in it. Nothing. I knew absolutely nothing except for the description that I read to you. I do wish the score was a little bit better. It could have been a little bit stronger in my opinion. And overall, I thought it was super unique for the type of movie it is. It is a psychological drama thriller, so the horror elements are much more subdued and more, you know, psychological based. But for being a witchy type movie, I feel like the execution and the themes and everything was really original, which is, I think, hard to do these days. Also, I'm gonna say a really weird statement, but just go with me. If you're into astrology, you'll get it. If a Pisces was a movie, it would be She Will, and this is coming from a Pisces, okay? The statements said at the end of this movie, so Pisces. Like, I know that's so weird to compare a zodiac sign to a movie. It just fits so well. I had to say something. And I'm gonna read you this little trivia item from IMDb, and you tell me this doesn't scream Pisces, okay? The story of She Will has themes director Charlotte Colbert says she has always been interested in with her practice and within her life. She says how trauma blurs one's experience of reality and time, how nature holds so much solace, how everyone carries within them the muscle memory of those who came before and those who will come after, how the infinitely small like a cell contains the same patterns as the universe, how meaning and perspective and reality and time are all such fragile constructs that can break at any time. The genre of psychological horror seems to allow more artistic freedom than drama. It also, at its heart, fittingly captures those existential feelings. I mean, she described psychological horror to a T. Love it. Love everything she had to say. I'm a Pisces, so that's probably why. Anyway, enough of that weird rant. Let's move on to the last movie I want to talk about for the month of July. I just watched this yesterday, called Marrowbone. I heard about this through TikTok. Sometimes I find some really great gems through TikTok, so if you're not on there getting some recommendations, you need to be, because I find some really obscure ones. I could not believe I had never heard of Marrowbone, to be honest, because it stars Mia Goth and Anya Taylor-Joy, both of whom I love. So I was surprised. I'd never even heard of this movie. A young man and his younger siblings who have concealed the death of their mother in order to remain together are plagued by a sinister presence in their home. So this is part family drama, part horror. And this I'm gonna compare it to another movie. This is horror like Crimson Peak is horror. You know what I mean? Very different movies. Do not compare them in any other way except for how much horror and the type of horror that's actually in it. Very reminiscent of Crimson Peak to me in like the style of horror, if that makes any sense. It's like Crimson Peak in that it never gets truly scary. You're never like covering your eyes or anything like that. It's never too much. It mostly follows the drama side of the story. And I think that this is a movie that changes pace so quickly. I'm not gonna lie, this is one that took 2 sittings for me. I watched halfway through and then took a break because the whole like first half to 3/4 is a lot slower and the tone of it is not a horror movie. There's like very few moments where it does feel like horror elements are going on, but again, it really focuses more on the drama, so it doesn't ever feel like a horror movie, if that makes sense. Anyway, but the first half kind of dragged on for me a little bit, so I was kind of anticipating the same thing in the end, and I thought I knew where this was going. Completely wild in the end. Not what I thought was going to happen at all. Definitely deserves more than one watch in order to really absorb everything, because I think I did guess something else was going on than just face value in certain parts, and I really want to go back and see if there's even more parts that give clues as to what really is going on. I really wish I could get into it a little bit more, but it'd be spoilery. There is something in it that's a little tropey in the end that I'm usually not a fan of, but I don't know, for some reason, because it caught me so off guard in this, and I really feel like it wasn't like, I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it. It worked for me, which is rare. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie as a whole. I really have to go back and rewatch it to really get everything, because I feel like because I had no idea where it was going in the end, that I did not catch half the things that I probably should have in the first half. And for how slow the first half of this movie really is, the end makes up for it, let me tell you. Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic, obviously. And this movie's 5 years old, and I've never heard of it. Never seen it, heard of it. I don't know how, but I'm really glad I discovered it. I knew as soon as I saw that it had Mia Goth and Anya Taylor-Joy, I knew I had to watch it immediately, so I did. So that is everything that I watched in the month of July. Like I said, a little bit slower because of Big Brother, unfortunately. Not even unfortunately, because I'm having a great time over here watching feeds all day. But unfortunately for you, not getting a lot of horror movie recommendations like usual. But yeah, I can't say it's going to change in August because, again, feeds still going on. But let me know if you have any specific requests of movies that you really want me to review either individually or at the end of the month in a monthly recap down below. And let me know your favorite thing that you watched in July in a comment. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.